Welcome to this video on the normal anatomy and physiology of the vestibular apparatus. Before we begin, consider the following questions. How is balance maintained by the body? What are the components of the vestibular apparatus and what do these do? How does the balance organ transduce movement into electrical signals? What is nystagmus and why does this occur? Balance requires the integration of a number of different sensory inputs, which include the vestibular apparatus of the ear, but also vision and proprioception. These must be processed and integrated by the brain, which itself must be sufficiently perfused to execute this function. Therefore, disorders of any of these inputs, or with the central processing or perfusion, can cause disequilibrium. The vestibular apparatus functions to detect movements of the head, which can move in three rotational planes. These include pitch, which is nodding your head up and down, yaw, or shaking the head from side to side, and roll, tilting the head left and right. As well as the rotational planes, there are three linear planes, moving forward and backward, side to side, and up and down. The semicircular canals detect rotational movements, while the otolith organs detect translational movements. The semicircular canals are oriented within the temporal bone to planes of rotational movement. The lateral semicircular canal detects yaw, the superior pitch, and the posterior roll. As each side of the body has a separate balance organ, movements towards one side stimulates the ipsilateral canal while inhibiting the contralateral canal. Each canal is filled with a potassium-rich fluid called endolymph, and as the head moves in the plane of the canal, inertial forces cause movement of the endolymph in the opposite direction. This movement is detected by an area in the canal called the ampulla. This ampulla contains movement detectors called cristae, which are made up of hair cells suspended within a gelatinous structure. The movement of the fluid applies shearing forces to the gelatinous cupula, which displaces the hair cells. Hair cells have a resting firing potential of approximately 100 action potentials a second. Depending on the direction of displacement, the hair cells can discharge at a faster or slower rate. The otolith organs have a similar mechanism of action. However, the structure of the transducer is slightly different. The movement transducers are organized into a macula, which consists of a bed of hair cells covered by a gelatinous substance upon which heavier calcium carbonate crystals called otoliths are embedded. When the body moves in a translational plane, inertial forces again result in a difference between the movement of the otolith-covered macula and the hair cells within, causing a shearing force which again increases or reduces the discharge rate of the hair cells. The utricle detects translational movements side to side, while the saccule detects translational movements up and down. An increase in the discharge rate in one ear, coupled with a reduction in the discharge rate from the contralateral ear, is interpreted by the brain as movement. In order to maintain a stable gaze and to keep the body balanced during movement, the brain uses inputs from the vestibular apparatus to drive reflexive movements of the eyes, neck and spine. These reflexes include the vestibulo-ocular reflex, the vestibulo-colic reflex and the vestibulo-spinal reflex. In order to understand why nystagmus occurs, we must understand the vestibulo-ocular reflex. In order to maintain one's gaze on an object in front while the head is moving to the right, the eyes must move to the opposite side. Therefore, stimulation of the right lateral canal causes adduction of the right eye and abduction of the left eye. If this right canal is stimulated, in the absence of movement, for example with a caloric, the eyes will reflexively move to the opposite side before self-correcting with quick saccadic movements, known as nystagmus. Nystagmus occurs in situations where movements in the endolymph do not correspond with movements of the head, and so the reflexive drift of the eyes are corrected by saccades. I hope you found this video useful. If so, please consider subscribing and let us know what you'd like us to cover next.